Chapter 15. We, of course, have been going through Proverbs for a little while. Those first handful of chapters, which were kind of brutal, weren't they? But we got through those. Hopefully we learned some things. But we went through those pretty well, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. And then last time, we kind of switched gears a little bit because we'd hit that point in Proverbs where, for the most part, it's just a whole string of individual proverbs, advice, good guidance, good wisdom, and encouragement and warning, right? And so reading it in a group setting like this, reading it chapter by chapter, verse by verse, is one way to do it, but it is absolutely a really good book to start talking about. You want us to talk about some topical stuff. We can talk about topical stuff. Proverbs pretty easy. And so what we started last time was just going through the rest of the book of Proverbs, looking at all the different ways that it talks about how are you using your mouth, right? We've talked about the fact that this mouth that we have is a dangerous weapon, right? It can be a dangerous weapon. It can be something that gets us in a lot of trouble, right? But it can also be something that educates. It can be something that encourages. It can be something that edifies. And so we just want to make sure that we're using our mouth in a right way. And so we went through all that. I say all that. We got partway through the book of Proverbs because there are a lot of verses in Proverbs that talk about how we use our mouth. I think the last one that we ended on last time, or at least pretty close, was Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1. A soft answer turneth away wrath. And we kind of went through that one, and so I won't redo that one, but just to kind of give you an idea of where we're at. I'm probably not going to read every single one of these, so you might occasionally see me up here looking at a few verses. There's so many of them, for time's sake, I'm probably going to have to bypass a few that seem to be repeats. But I want to make sure that we get a good feeling for what Proverbs says about our mouth. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 2 says this: "The tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness." The difference, right? The distinction between the wise and the fool. The fool just gushes out nonsense. Whereas the fool, and we can learn this from other passages, the wise, they take their time, they make sure that what they're saying is right and wise and good, and they don't just spew forth without putting forth the right thought process into this thing, right? So this verse doesn't specifically talk about the taking time piece, but I think we got that from some of the other verses. The tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright. They know how to apply the knowledge they have, the right time, the right place, and the right way, versus the guy that just spews out foolishness on a regular basis, right? So what do you want to be known for would be a good question to ask yourself. When you open your mouth and speak, do you want to be known for the guy that just, his mouth is constantly going, but it's kind of worthless stuff that's coming out? Or do you want to be known for the person that may not speak as much, but listen, when they say something, listen, right? Because this is going to be good stuff. I also look at verse 4. It says, "A wholesome tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness therein is a breach in the spirit." So many of these verses give these contrasts, right? You can use your tongue in a way that brings forth life, right? This is a good thing. The things that you're saying lift up, encourage, bring life. Or when your mouth speaks things that are perverted, you're just spewing forth hurtful things. It's a breach of the spirit. It's just not good. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 7. "The lips of the wise disperse knowledge, but the heart of the foolish doeth not so." Listen, if you have been blessed with the knowledge of God, the wisdom of God, the understanding of God, then speak of those things, right? Whereas the fool, that's not what he's talking about. That's not what he's going to focus on. That's not going to be the things coming out of his mouth. What do you want coming out of your mouth? You want your mouth to be used in a way that disperses good knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. I'm going to actually include verse 18. It doesn't talk about the mouth, but I think that generally the speaking, the way that this strife is stirred up is often with the mouth. So Proverbs chapter 15, verse 18 says this, "A wrathful man stirreth up strife, but he that is slow to anger appeaseth strife." How many times do we let our mouth get into gear before our brains are in gear? And we're spewing things and we're saying things, and all that we're doing is taking a bad situation and making it worse, right? Do you stir up strife? Or do the words that come out of your mouth tame it down, right? You can look at verse 23. "A man hath joy by the answer of his mouth, and a word spoken in due season. How good is it?" We think about the words that we say, how much harm they can be. But listen, a good word said at the right time is like medicine, right? "A man hath joy by the answer of his mouth, and a word spoken in due season." The right time and the right place. Actually, all the author can say here is, how good is it, right? It's just so good. It's not meant to be a real question, right? It's stated in a way that says, you know the answer to this. How good does that feel when the right thing is said at the right time, right? Listen, you can be that to other people. I would say the opposite of that is true too, right? Words hurt even more in times of distress. And if you're a fool and you're just spouting off things without thinking about what you're saying, making sure that what you're saying is godly and wise, you can cause more harm. But when you say the right thing at the right time, man, it just makes so much of a difference in people's life, right? So I really like that one. I really like the way that one's worded. How good is it? Verse 28 of Proverbs chapter 15, "The heart of the righteous studieth to answer, but the mouth of the wicked poureth out evil things." I've actually already said it several times in my own explanations and talking about how we should speak, but this one does it pretty good. "The heart of the righteous studieth to answer." What do you think that means? The heart of the righteous studieth to answer. Listen, if you are righteous, you're wanting to be righteous, you're wanting to show forth the wisdom of God, before you just spout out your answer, you need to sit down and put some thought into it. You need to study it out. And then once you've studied it out and you've hopefully sought godly counsel from His Word, then speak, right? That's the way to do it from the heart. But the mouth of the wicked, man, he just pours out evil left and right. He didn't think about it. He didn't put thought into it. It's probably not been pressed against the Scriptures of God to make sure that it's accurate. He's just saying what he wants to say. Kids, don't be like that. Adults, don't be like that, right? Make sure that you're thinking about what you're saying before you just throw it out there for everybody. All right. There's a section of verses here in Proverbs chapter 16. I'm going to read these together because there are some places in Proverbs where there's a string of verses that kind of go together. Let's start in verse 10. A divine sentence in the lips of the king is in the lips of the king. His mouth transgresseth not in judgment. A just weight and balances are the Lord's. All the weights of the bag are his work. If it is an abomination to kings to commit wickedness, for the throne is established by righteousness. Righteous lips are the delight of kings, and they love him that speaketh right. The wrath of a king is as messengers of death, but a wise man will pacify it. In the light of the king's countenance is life, and his favor is as a cloud of the latter rain. You look at those verses together, and most of those verses are dealing with people in positions of power or authority, and how important it is that the words that come out of their mouth are just and right, and how important it is that those that actually have their ear are giving them wise counsel. Now, I think we all know that in verse 10, a divine sentence is in the lips of the king. That's what we want, right? What we want out of the mouth of a king is as to speak from the oracles of God, right? That the things he's speaking are from God. Now, I think we know that many times that's not the case. So this verse is not saying that all kings have divine speech and that their mouth does not transgresseth not in judgment. That's the goal. Solomon here is saying this is what you want in a king. Unfortunately, even good kings can't always do that. But isn't it great to know that there is one king that can and does? There is one king that what he says will always be 100% correct. There will be one king that never gets judgment wrong. And that, of course, is the Lord Jesus Christ, and we're thankful to know that. But listen, if you are in a position of leadership, if you are in a position of power, it is important that the words that come out of your mouth are true. It is important that the judgments that you make are honorable and right. And verse 13, righteous lips are the delight of kings, and they love him that speaketh right. Again, if you're in a position of power or leadership, you want people around you and the people that have your ear to be people that are righteous and speak righteously. That is a great encouragement to you. And in the end, it's going to actually cause you to be in a good place among the people. I think I can say this. Having been in positions of leadership for quite a while, and having observed a lot of other people in leadership positions, you know what I find sometimes happens? When a person becomes a leader, sometimes the people around them don't say what they're really thinking. Right? Sometimes people become yes people. Yes, that's a good idea, because the boss came up with it, right? That's actually not what that's actually not what a good leader really wants. What a good leader really wants is those that are going to speak truth to them, right? So good practical stuff here, guys. Surround yourself with people that are going to speak the truth to you. It will be a blessing and an encouragement to you. If you ever get in a position of leadership or power, draw those kind of people to you. You will need them. You got places like Proverbs chapter 16, verse 23. The heart of the wise teacheth his mouth, and addeth learning to his lips. This is similar to what we talked about already, right? The heart of the wise teacheth his mouth. I believe what this is saying You want to be wise? You teach your mouth when to speak, how to speak, and what to speak. It takes training, guys. It takes effort. It's something you kind of have to teach yourself to do. Know when to say something. You've got places like Proverbs chapter 24. Pleasant words are as an honeycomb, sweet to the soul, and health to the bones. Similar to the verse we talked about earlier about a word in a due season, right? Listen, this one is talking about pleasant words and what they're like. Now, I understand here, the word here, pleasant, is like graceful or agreeable words. Like this is something that's good. This is pleasant to hear. These are good, graceful words. And they're like a honeycomb, sweet to the soul. Now, some of you like honey. I don't. But I do understand the concept. Even though I don't like honey, I understand the concept in this verse, right? It's sweet. It's sweet to the taste. Are the words that are coming out of your mouth, do they give that picture? And when I say sweet, I don't just mean, like, well, she's such a sweetheart. Bless her heart. No, but are they pleasant? Are they, because when you speak to somebody and you speak good, encouraging, uplifting, pleasant words, that's something that's encouraging to people. It's something that is health to the bones. By the way, I'm just going to interject this here myself. I think pleasant, sweet words are health to not just the bones of the person hearing them, but they are health to yourself too. It just seems like those people that are constantly in a state of agitation and the words coming out of their mouth are constantly aggressive and bitter and angry. Listen, that stuff just eats up your own soul. So pleasant words are described in the Bible as they can be something that's sweet to the soul and health to the bones. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 27. An ungodly man diggeth up evil, and in his lips there is a burning fire. There are people out there that, listen, they go about their day trying to dig up as much evil stuff as they can. And you know what they're going to do when they find it? They're going to go out and they're going to use their lips to spread that stuff as far as they can and cause as much damage and destruction as they can do. It's like burning fire. I know I'm hitting these quick, but I hope, again, most of these are fairly easy for us to grasp, right? When you go out and you look for trouble and you find it and then you go spread it around, the Bible compares it to going out and starting a fire that's going to just consume and burn up stuff. Watch what you say, how you say it. Proverbs chapter 17, verse 4. A wicked doer giveth heed to false lips, and a liar giveth ear to a naughty tongue. You shouldn't be surprised that somebody that is about doing wickedness, you shouldn't be surprised that they are looking for those that are going to be speaking false teaching. They're out there to find it. Liars seem to collect together. How about Proverbs chapter 17, verse 7? Excellent speech becometh not a fool, much less do lying lips a prince. I think as you look at this, you know what? Have you ever seen people? They are great orators, right? They know how to speak, and their voice is soothing, or they've got, listen, it's just true. Some people have voices that people love to hear. I've noticed that lots of times, and this is maybe a goofy example, but you think about some of the more successful YouTube channels, right? Lots of times, whoever's speaking, they just have a voice that, it's good at telling stories. People like to listen to it. People are charismatic. They're dynamic in their speech. You know what? You pair that up with a fool, and it's just a shame, right? It isn't fitting that a fool would be able to be out there and have this excellent speech. It's pointless, really, right? All they do is lead people away, but in reality, the stuff coming out of their mouth is no good. Let me just pause there for a second and give you some good advice. Just because a person is well-spoken and charismatic does not mean you should listen to them. And that sounds obvious, and you're like, yeah, why do you even have to say that? Listen, sometimes what I have seen in people is that when you have somebody that sounds honest, somebody that sounds impressive, sometimes you get lulled into not actually studying out what they say. Don't fall into that trap. I don't care how good they sound. I don't care how confident they sound. You take what anybody tells you and you weigh it against Scripture, and you balance it against the things of God, and make sure that what you're about to listen to is good. Okay? Much less do lying lips a prince. Again, back to some of this other idea, right? It's not good for somebody that is supposed to be honorable, somebody that's supposed to be in a position of power, somebody that's supposed to be in a position of respect, to be a liar. It's just not honorable for that person to have lying lips. Again, a lot of the stuff we understand should be common sense, right? I look at a lot of the leaders today, and even some of the ones we like. I'm honestly not sure that we trust any of them. And how shameful is that? But it's kind of the culture and environment that's been created, right? You find a person that's in position of power, president, governor, senator, congressman, right? The reputation that most of these guys have is that they'll say what they need to say to get it done, right? The Bible actually talks about that that's a dishonorable thing. It's not good that somebody in a position like that has a lying tongue. Verse 9, Proverbs chapter 17, verse 9. Again, I think I'm going to clarify this. We had to clarify one of these last time. He that covereth a transgression seeketh love, but he that repeateth a matter separateth very friends. As I looked at some of the commentaries and stuff, a lot of them said in this, it's not that we're encouraging you to take some ongoing sinful thing and cover it up, right? That's not what this is talking about. This is talking about if you've done some offense to me, am I going to go spread it all around? Or in love, am I going to keep this thing between you and me while we work this thing out? And sometimes, have you ever seen it where people there's something, I do something I shouldn't have done, it's been an offense to you. Maybe me and you even talk about it, and we get it right. I apologize, you accept my apology. But then you know what happens? Well, you go tell all your friends about it. Well, you know, he did this to me. Or, the next time, even though you've forgiven me and we've moved on, and I'm not doing it anymore, at every opportunity you bring it back up as something to remind me. Do you remember when you did that to me? Do you remember when you did that to me? Do you remember when you did that to me? I think we need to be careful about how we take some of these things and we just spread them around, right? He that repeateth a matter separateth very friends. Let's just go ahead and skip down to the very last verse here in chapter 17. I've always thought this one's pretty funny. Even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise, and he that shutteth his lips is esteemed a man of understanding. Remember what I said earlier about how that a wise man thinks about what he's going to say. He doesn't just go off half-cocked. He doesn't go off without thinking about what he's doing, what he's about to say, but he thinks about it. When he says something, you know it's been thought through. Also, there are times when, listen, we don't have to comment on every single thing that happens. We need to know when to say something and when not to say something. I think the Bible here is given this illustration to drive home that idea of know when to speak and know when not to speak. Because listen, even a fool, when he's quiet about something, people might look at him and go, he's kind of wise. Or he's a man of understanding. He just didn't spout off at the mouth. Look at that guy. He's sitting back and really contemplating on what should be said. In reality, in this case, he was just a fool. He just, for whatever reason, didn't happen to say anything that time. But even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise, and he that shutteth his lips is esteemed a man of understanding. Okay. You guys ready for another one? Are you going to sleep? Is this rapid fire? Is this rapid fire, quickly changing topics, but still talking about what we're using our mouth for? Is it putting you to sleep? No? Okay. All right. I'll keep going. Proverbs chapter 18. How about this one? Proverbs chapter 18, verse 8. The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly. And actually, the verse before it, a fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. Right? The words that he speaks, they're going to eventually get him in trouble. The words that he speaks are going to cause destruction. But sometimes that verse is dealing with the destruction he causes himself. The next one are words and how they impact others. They're wounds that go down into the innermost parts of the belly. Somebody that goes around and slanders other people. This is the gossip that goes out and maybe stretches the truth a little bit. Oftentimes I find slanderers have a grain of truth, but they twist it, and now they're out there declaring things about people that aren't true. And you know, that causes a lot of damage to people. There's the practical side of this. Listen, you start slandering other people and saying things about them. You tarnish their reputation. You cause people to maybe not want to do business with them. You cause people to not respect them. You cause people to be talking about them and getting upset at them when in reality they didn't do anything. Listen, what you say about other people can cause deep wounds. Unfortunately, because the hearers are also often not wise. We'll probably tackle that topic in a little while. The Proverbs has a lot to say about not just the speaker, but also the listener. Listen, oftentimes, people go out and slander other people. There's a percentage of people that are going to do their homework and figure out whether this thing is true or not. There's just as many people out there who are foolish and unwise, and they're going to take whatever's said at face value. They're never going to follow up, and they're never going to do their homework to figure out whether it's true or not. You go out and say bad things about people, you are causing damage to them. Don't be that person. I think we all sit here and think that we aren't that person. But listen, I think every one of us is capable in the heat of the moment of spouting off about something we aren't supposed to be spouting off about. And maybe we don't have all the facts yet, but we're going to say what we know, and it's maybe going to come out not quite accurate. We need to be careful. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 13. Very similar to some of the other ones, but listen, this is a good reminder. He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. You know what I think about when I listen to this one, and I realize there's lots of things we could talk about? I think about the news media. There has become this massive rush to be the first to convey the story, to be the first to be able to say something about it, to be the first to be able to get the interview with so-and-so, to be the first out there in front of everybody. And you know what? How many times in recent years has there been stuff that gets said because you got to be first, but you don't know all the facts yet, and then you find out a few days later, well, there was a whole lot more to the story. But listen, by then the damage is already done. There's already sound bits. There's already clips on YouTube that are never going away. And there's a handful of people, probably more than a handful, that heard the original, but they never hear the follow-up story. Right? It's dangerous. It causes harm. And it brings shame and folly. How many times have people had to go out and make an apology because they said something not knowing the whole truth? And then they had to come out and apologize for it. Be slow to speak. Make sure that you know the truth before you open your mouth. All right, Proverbs chapter 19, and I know I'm skipping a few, but Proverbs chapter 19. Verse 1 says, "Better is the poor that walketh in his integrity than he that is perverse in his lips and is a fool." I know this is hard to believe, but listen, in God's eyes, it is better to be poor and be a man or a woman of integrity and honesty, where people know what you say and they can trust it, and that it's going to be good and clean and righteous when it comes out your mouth, than to be rich, but a fool that speaks perversely. I understand that some people got where they are in riches and in power because they were willing to say whatever it took to get there. And you may look at them and think, well, look at what they've achieved. Look at what they've got. Look at how important they are. In the eyes of God, He says it is better to be poor and have integrity than to be the fool that says whatever he needs to. And I'll remember this in verse 5. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. And then in verse 9 it says it again, just in case you didn't get it the first time. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall perish. Now I don't know, you know what? There's people in this world that have gotten a lifetime of deceit and speaking dishonorably, and they still seem to be pretty successful. But these verses are conveying the fact that, listen, God is the final judge, and they will be judged. And from a practical perspective, their lies always come back to bite them, right? We can talk about the eternal thing. God is going to judge people, even if you don't see it in this life. But even in this life, even those people that are successful and have done what they've done, listen, don't you see the times that what they've said is just a constant thing they're always having to battle and get out of and explain and try to get away from? We can think about the President of the United States and the number of times that he has said something that is blatantly false, and it constantly comes back, and something he's happened, I didn't say that, or that's not what I meant, or honestly trying to cause some diversion so you don't notice it. I know I'm getting political, but I'm just trying to show that, listen, remember, stick these verses together. It's not good for a prince to have lying lips. Or we think about the other ones, about the king, and how that they should want to have righteousness and honest people around them, and the things they say should be upright. But too many times today, so many leaders in this world, man, they just say what they got to say to get by. But listen, it comes back, and they're constantly having to dig themselves out of more trouble. Unfortunately, sometimes this world just lets them, and it's not good, right? I better move on to the next chapter. Proverbs chapter 20. Proverbs chapter 20. Verse 14. Let's picture this one for a minute. Verse 14. It is not, saith the buyer, but when he is gone his way, then he boasteth. You ever seen those, and it's not necessarily in our society very much, because you go to the store and it has a price tag, and you can go talk to anybody you want to talk to. You're probably going to pay what's on that price tag, right? But listen, in a lot of societies where there's more of a bartering or there's more of a negotiating over prices. When I was in Guyana, South America, and we went to the market, listen, there was a lot of that. You know, they're asking $50 for this, but you know that $50 is way overpriced, and you go into this whole dialogue about, well, I'll give you 10. I couldn't take less than 40 for it. Well, you know what starts to happen? Well, it's not really made of that great a material. I don't know, it's just not quite, I bet it isn't going to last long. This thing isn't worth much money. I'll give you 15. Right? And you have this whole back and forth, and the whole time you as the buyer are trying to convince the seller that this thing really just isn't worth that much money. It is not. It is not. And then you buy it, and what do? You go home and you brag to all your friends about how you got this really great thing for such a great price. Right? Do you see the double-tongued nature of man? It's kind of funny, right? But at the same time, it's not. Because it shows what's in our heart, and this idea of how double-tongued we are. Oh, that's not worth anything. That's not worth anything. Hey, look at this great deal I got this guy to give me. I mean, this is great. I suckered him. It's kind of the idea that you get here in this verse, right? That's not the way we're supposed to be. Verse 19 gives you some good advice. It says, he that goeth about as a talebearer revealeth secrets. You remember this idea of the slanderer or the gossip that's going about telling things that are either not true or that aren't supposed to be told? Well, it adds a little bit of advice to this one. Therefore, meddle not with him that flattereth with his lips. You be careful who you talk to and what you say, because sometimes those people that are buttering you up, but they have a reputation for being a gossip and a slander, don't think they aren't going to do it to you too. Be careful who you are associating with. He that goeth about his talebearer reveals secrets. Therefore meddle not with him that flattereth with his lips. Be careful. How about verse 20? Whoso curseth his father or mother, his lamp shall be put out in obscure darkness. You can go to some places in the New Testament and see some things about the Lord's opinion about people that curse their mother and father. You see it here, you see it in some other references. The Bible describes it as that curse their own parents. They ought to just be taken out in the dark without a lamp, right? Like, it's just foolishness. Hey, kids, be careful griping and complaining and bad-mouthing your parents when they aren't in the room. God says, you curse your parents, your lamp's going to be put out and you're going to be cast out into utter darkness. Proverbs chapter 21. We'll do a few more here before we wrap up. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 6. The getting of treasures by a lying tongue is a vanity, tossed to and fro of them that seek death. You go seeking after power and treasure through a lying tongue, the end of that is death, and it's vanity. You may achieve it. You may actually get treasure through it. But the end is destruction. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 23. Whoso keepeth his mouth and his tongue keepeth his soul from trouble. Are you noticing a theme on a lot of these? How many times have we ran across verses that are being with this idea of know when to speak and when to keep your mouth shut? Whoso keepeth his mouth, you guard it, right? The idea there is you guard it. You guard your mouth, you guard your tongue, and you're going to keep yourself from a lot of trouble, right? How many of you have gotten in trouble because of something you said? Oh man, look at this. There are some people that suddenly smiling back at me like, oh yeah, that's me. The way we describe it sometimes is, like you need to learn how to bite your tongue. That means you're about to speak. Do something to keep yourself from talking, because now might not be the right time to say that. Whoso guardeth or keepeth his mouth and guardeth his tongue keepeth his soul from trouble. I'm always amazed at our ability to open our mouth and cause trouble. All right. Man, there's just so many here. Proverbs chapter 23, I'll skip ahead a little bit. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 9. Speak not in the ears of a fool, for he will despise the wisdom of thy words. And this verse, you do have to be careful. You have to take Proverbs and the Scripture in its entirety, right? There is a time where you do need to open your mouth and say something to the person who is being foolish. I don't think this verse is saying that you can never confront somebody that's being foolish. I do think, though, that there reaches a point where it is a wasted effort sometimes to speak in the ears of somebody that is proven to be foolish over and over and over and over again. Just walk away from that conversation knowing that they are probably going to despise what you say. Now, the Lord can change somebody's heart. I will just say that right here. The Lord can change somebody's heart. But I do think that there are people who have gotten to the point where they refuse to hear wisdom. And you can tell them all day long, and they're just going to despise it. Let's do a couple more. Proverbs chapter 25. I'm going to do this one because I think it goes along with a couple of the others that we've said, and I like the way that the Bible draws these pictures. Proverbs chapter 25, verse 11 says, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in pictures of silver." A word spoken at the right time, in the right way, is like an apple of gold in a basket of silver, right? Like just this picture of value. It looks good, it is good, it's a value. Was there another verse similar to that, guys? About the way we speak and when we speak, right? In due season. Words spoken in due season. How great they are. And then we'll end with this fairly good reminder of how we should not use our mouth. Listen to this one, guys. Proverbs chapter 25, verse 14. "Whoso boasteth himself of a false gift is like clouds and wind without rain." Picture this. You're in a time of drought. It's dry. What you really need is rain, right? The crops are dying. The livestock is struggling. We're having to ration our water. Am I drawing a bad enough picture for you? Right? You need water. And hallelujah, the clouds come, and there's some wind, and it looks like a storm. And you're finally going to get that water that you need. But it never comes. It's just clouds. It's just wind. There's no rain. That is what it's like to have somebody that boasts themselves of some great gift that they actually don't have. You say, well, okay, how is that? Like, what's the practical side of that? Listen, as a person who has sat through many, many interviews, let's talk about some practical application here, right? As somebody that has sat through many interviews, you can say all kinds of things in your interview, but the truth comes out when you start working. right? You come along and talk about how great you are at customer service and how much experience you have and how you've been able to diffuse situations and you've been able to work with people in positions of authority and really be able to manage that. And then you go out and the first time there's some big problem, like everything you say just makes it worse, right? Because you don't know how to handle conflict. That's what I'm talking about, right? This idea of you go out and boast yourself of gifts you don't really have, and then people go to rely on you and lean on you. The Bible compares it to that idea of the person that really needs rain, but all they get is a storm cloud and no rain. It didn't accomplish what needed to be accomplished, right? So, I would give you 2 words of advice on this one. Understand that not everything everybody tells you may be true. It's okay to look for proof and evidence of the gifts that people are boasting of. Second piece of advice. Be honest about yourself. Be honest about yourself. Don't claim things that you have no right to be claiming. Don't puff up yourself and make yourself look to be something that you aren't. I get it. It may make it harder to achieve something you're trying to achieve. But I guarantee you, in the long run, your reputation will be better off. Much better off. I had somebody tell me one time, and I will stop with this. I had somebody tell me one time, I asked him, tell me about a time where you made a decision, turned out to be a mistake, and you learned something from it. And they looked at me for a little bit and they said, I am so good, I have never made a bad decision and made a mistake, and so I don't really have an answer for you because I'm so well thought out, I'm so well planned, I can honestly think of no time I've ever made a decision and made a mistake. I'm just not that kind of guy. Do you know what? Halfway through, because it was literally halfway through, that interview was basically over. I was never going to hire that person. Didn't matter what the rest of their credentials looked like. I wasn't hiring that person. I give you some of these just to give you this idea that these things aren't just these cute little sayings. There are real life, practical ways that this applies. So, yes, it may be harder to get where you want to go if you don't stretch the truth. But listen, in the long run, you will be more respected by being honest and earning it the hard way than making it up. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and go to the Lord in a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father,